Greetings and welcome back to Room 303, AP English, the World of Ideas lectures, and an introduction to Plato's Republic. I want to try and do three things in this lecture. One, I want to talk with you a little bit about who Socrates was, because of course the holy trinity of philosophers is Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. So I want to make sure you have a sense of who Socrates was. And then two, I want to talk about Plato. I'm not going to talk much about Aristotle. I do that elsewhere in Learn Strong. Two, I want to talk about Plato's Republic as the dialogue of all dialogues. The great Harvard philosopher North Whitehead said, all of history is a footnote to Plato. And while that's a hyperbolic statement, there's a lot of truth to it, okay? So we'll talk a little bit about Republic as being that seminal text in the Western literary tradition, philosophic literary tradition. And then finally, number three, I want to work through Republic book by book real quickly. Now, I have available online at LearnStrong detailed lectures in the AP folder over each one of the books of Republic in detail. Here, I just want to give enough information so that if you need to know what Republic is about, you can pick up this information, you can go to work with it. Let's try and accomplish all three objectives. One, who was Socrates? When we see him as represented by Plato, because Socrates didn't write anything down, we see him as this enigmatic old man who sits in the middle of the agora, which would be, for today, the mall, okay? Where he spends his days asking really intriguing questions. Two young people walk by, one of them's carrying an Abercrombie bag, he asks why Abercrombie, the kid carrying the bag gets mad and leaves, the other kid sits down next to the old man Socrates and says, why are you jacking on my friend? Not that I could care less what it is that he wears, Abercrombie or whatever, I'm more interested in why. That is to say, what's the point? And the kid says, I wear Abercrombie as well, but I guess I've never thought about it. Socrates will point out something like, it gets dark at night obvious. Our clothes somehow represent who we are. And if I can drop $100 on a t-shirt, I'm able to say to other people, I can wear Abercrombie and you can't, which somehow gives me a sense of power over you, which is why I wear it. And of course, Plato goes home to get rid of all of his Abercrombie garments. His mother, of course, wants to know what's going on and why he's putting it in a garbage bag as opposed to, he's going to wear now thrift store clothes, I guess. In 399 BCE, Socrates will be held accountable for the life that he's lived. He'll be brought to trial. In front of the trial, the jury, and we know about this because his student, Plato, in my little story, my makeshift story, he's the one that came and sat down next to him. Plato's there and witnesses. He watches his Socrates go through this process of having to defend his life. Now, Plato will tell us about this in a text called the Apology. And if you're ever really introduced well to Platonic thought or Socratic thought, that's the place I always recommend that you start. And I give a full lecture on the Apology online at LearnStrong. Two things of importance about this dialogue called Apology. One, Socrates gives his defense. Apology. Today we don't use that word that way. We say, I'm sorry when I apologize. But in the older meaning of the word, apology meant to defend yourself. So he defends himself. And about his life, Socrates says, he's really important in the city of Athens because he's the guy who, like a gadfly or a housefly or a horsefly, bites the rear end of the horse of state and wakes up the most important people. Probably didn't do him any favors to call the people who are making his decision about his life a horse's rear end. There's all kinds of irony in Plato all the way through the dialogues. Right before Socrates goes to be executed, he will say that famous line that many in 303 have qualified as one of the most important lines ever. The unexamined life is not worth living. In other words, ask the simple question, why do I do the things I do? Why do I think the things I think, etc.? 399, Socrates is convicted of being an atheist and a corrupter of the youth and is sentenced to die. Sitting in prison, one of his buddies, Crito, C-R-I-T-O, shows up and says, let's go, I've got a way to get you out of the prison. Socrates will do something fascinating in Plato's dialogue, Crito. Socrates will say, let's think about this before we leave. I'm being accused of being a criminal to the state and breaking their laws. If I walk out of this jail, am I not breaking their laws? And in that regards, I deserve to be executed by the state. Crito's like, well, yeah, but you didn't actually do it. Doesn't matter. When the state has found me guilty, for me to go against the will of the state and the law, that means I'm breaking the law. That means I'm worthy of execution. Crito has to say fine, and Socrates will stay in prison. The Phaedo is the dialogue of Socrates' final moments right before he dies. Let's say 3 things about it. By the way, I've given full lectures on Apology, Crito, and Phaedo online at LearnStrong. You can obviously find them there in more detail. Phaedo, 3 things. 1, the students of Socrates, including Plato, are deeply distressed about the fact that Socrates is about to drink hemlock poison and die. 399 BCE. Socrates, though, number 2, Socrates is happy. He's almost giddy. He's like you would be before you go off to take a major trip or something. And they're like, can't figure it out. To which Socrates says, what is your guys' problem? If you've not been listening to anything I've been saying, that is to say, I'm about to die, but that can't be the end, because there's this thing called my soul. And while my body is about to die, my soul is about to take a journey, not unlike, for example, the journey Odysseus takes in the Odyssey into the unknown. The students then will say, yeah, well, yeah, you think that you have a soul, but I mean, I'm not sure you really have a soul. Socrates is like, no, I can give you absolute proof that you have a soul. That's what the Phaedo is about, and it becomes one of the most important single documents in Western thought, because later there will be this guy named Augustine, who will later be called Saint Augustine, who in large measure invents Christian theology, and Augustine will go to the Phaedo to begin to find an argument for the existence of this thing called a soul. Okay? Now let's go to Republic. Plato will write Republic later in his life, and Plato's Republic is the most important dialogue. Now, let's say 3 things about dialogue as a form. 1, it's kind of like subsuming the epic poem tradition of Homer and the dramatic form of Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus as a tragedy dramatic form. And to bring them together is in large measure what the dialogue form actually is. Number 2, in the dialogue form, it's like reading an interview in Rolling Stone or another magazine like that, where you have interloculars. To locute means to speak. Interloculars, people who speak back and forth. Okay? And one of those interloculars is almost always Socrates. And then there will be others as well. Okay? Number 3, about the dialogue form. These dialogues are always driven by the Socratic method of questions. Socrates will always begin by asking questions, namely definitions. And in this regard, probably a lot of Western philosophic thought is born in this moment. Because about anything you say, Socrates is going to ask a simple question like, can you define that? So for example, well, Jefferson says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It will be Socrates that goes, whoa, pursuit of what? Happiness. You know happiness. No, I don't know. Define it. What do you mean define it? Kidding me. It's called Scooby Snacks. No, Scooby Snacks could be an illusion. Define happiness. How do you know when you're happy? And then a whole dialogue can be created out of something like this. So he will often begin with these questions. The moment you respond, he'll come back with another question, and then another question, and then another question. Some of you are looking at me like, sounds familiar. Right, the Socratic method is a very popular style of teaching. No question, it is a pedagogic approach in 303. We'll get to this word pedagogy later because we're going to study Republic. Okay? Let's go now to the dialogue Republic. It is divided into 10 books, but that's happening down the line, okay? The dialogue itself is one long conversation, which if you actually read it out loud from start to finish, as a couple of my students once did, it took them almost 2 days to read this thing non-stop. So it's a lot of words divided today for us into 10 books. So we're going to talk about each one of these 10 books for just a few moments. I'll resurrect the major question of each book, and I'll try to outline some of the major ideas. Again, I've done this in detail on LearnStrong.net for those of you that are really interested in delving. Let's go to book 1. The Republic will open, as almost all the great dialogues of Plato open, with some kind of framing sequence. The framing sequence here is Socrates leaving from the Acropolis in Athens. There's this city down below, and then a rock that sits up called the Acropolis, and on top of the Acropolis, the Parthenon. Maybe for somebody, the last time I took students there, we stood on the Acropolis. You can look out all over Athens. Down below is a shopping district, party district, called in Socrates' day the Piraeus. And we're told that Socrates goes down into the Piraeus to observe the religious ceremony. Kind of strange for an atheist, right? So you can see the ironies already. When he gets down into the Piraeus, a young man and a group behind him will accost him and say to Socrates, "We know that you're ready to go back up to the Acropolis. We demand that you stay." And Socrates says, "Can I maybe have a conversation with you to convince you to let me leave?" And one of them will say, famous line, "How can we hear if we refuse to listen?" 25 lines into Republic. It's a very famous line. How can we hear if we refuse to listen? An invitation, by obviously Plato to the reader, to listen, to pay attention, to be a good student, if you will. And right away, let's put it in our notes. Among all the things that the Dialogue Republic is, it's certainly a dialogue about education, about learning. Back to the house of Polydorus will come Socrates and all of the students, and now the dialogue actually begins. Socrates has a conversation with an old man. He asks the old man, who by the way is a very wealthy old man, "What's it like to be old?" Socrates, note the irony, is already old himself, but this guy's older. And the guy says, "You know what? It's kind of interesting." Hephaestus will say, "It's kind of interesting to be old." He says, "Here's the deal. When you're old, then if you're rich, it's better than being poor. Because the way you got to be rich was by jacking on people and messing them up. So that by the time you get older, you can go to them and apologize, and you can pay off your debts when you were a nasty person." So for example, you walk up to somebody and say, "I was really mean to you." "Yeah, you think? Well, here's the deal. I want to give you 1,000,000 bones. Are you okay with that?" And the person goes, $1,000,000? Yeah, that's fine. "Great, let me give you $1,000,000. And Socrates says, "Well, so what you're saying is it's better to have money when you're old so that you can undo all the bad things or the unjust things that you did." Now what Plato's doing is he's inching us towards the central question of Republic, which is simply, what is justice? So write that down in your notes. Republic 1, what is justice? Now, in that regards, what we're talking about is simply the question, what does it mean to do the right thing? All right, so what does it mean to do the right thing? How do you know when you've done something well? Out of the back, at the end of Republic 1, out of the back, we hear a voice. This is the voice of Thrasymachus. Don't worry about spellings. Spell it the way it sounds. Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus is the Darth Vader of this dialogue. And Thrasymachus says, "Socrates, idiot." And all the heads of the students snap around like, "Dude, you just called Socrates an idiot?" Thrasymachus is a sophist. He is paid to argue both sides of any position. Epistemologically, that is to say what one can know, he is what we call a relativist. And his argument is simple. Might makes right. In other words, he says it this way: I'll tell you what it means to do the right thing. The guy with the biggest gun makes the rules. So for example, somebody walks in here and says, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." And one of you go, "Yeah, I ain't doing it." Shh, wham, blows you away. Everybody else goes, "Fine, that's what we're doing." Guy with the biggest gun gets to make the rules. Might makes right. Put it in your notes at 3A. Later, this ideal will be made popular by a cat named Machiavelli when he writes in The Prince the same basic concept, strategic violence. Might makes right. So we will begin in Republic 1 then with a simple question. The question is, what does it mean to do the right thing? Justice. So, and Thrasymachus says, it's simple. The guy who has the biggest gun. In other words, power is what determines right and wrong. There is no such thing as right or wrong. It's all about power. Socrates, though, asks a very interesting question. He says, yeah, but think about this. 4 guys go in to rob a bank. One guy's left out in the car. The other 3 go in to rob the bank. The 3 come out. The guy is gone. What are they going to say about the guy driving the car? He did what, right or wrong? No, he's wrong. How about this? They throw the loot, they stole millions, into the back of the trunk, and then they're all getting into the car, but before they can get in, he drives away. Now he's got all the money for himself. What will the guys who robbed the bank say about the guy that drove away? Hey, 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 you did the wrong thing. I'm sorry, what? The wrong thing? What are you talking about? If justice or doing the right thing is only about the stronger or the smarter, then the other three guys should applaud him and say, hey, that was a pretty smart plan. Nice job. High five. That is not what they do. Even bad guys have a sense of right and wrong. Where'd that come from? And Thrasymachus, we're told at the end of Republic 1 goes, I don't really like that you just asked me that question. And he kind of goes away. And for the rest of the dialogue, we don't hear from Thrasymachus again. There is some postulate that Plato wrote this dialogue as the Thrasymachus, and that's the end of the dialogue, but then he must have continued it, and now we're ready for Republic 2. And here's why. There's a young student named Glaucon, brave in all things, Glaucon. And Glaucon says to Socrates early on in Republic 2, here's the thing, I heard the exchange. I hate to admit this about myself, but he said, I kind of have to say this out loud, Socrates. I kind of agree with Thrasymachus. I think humans are fundamentally really nasty, and I think that all we care about is gaining the upper hand with violence and power. He says it's kind of like, well, he goes, you know, the myth of Gyges. Socrates pretends stupidity. Be aware in the dialogues when Socrates starts to act like he doesn't know, that's when you want to get ready to duck. Because Socrates goes, myth of Gyges? Dude, I don't know about the myth of Gyges. What are you talking about? And he goes, yeah, you know, the story, the myth of Gyges. Let's tell the story. He says, it's a famous story. It's about a shepherd named Gyges who is out in the fields and he falls in a hole. And while he's down in the hole, he finds a ring. And he puts the ring on. For the Tolkien fans in the house, you're going to smile because now you're going to know where Tolkien got the idea from. And he puts the ring on. And while he's sitting around the fire with his other buddies, he starts turning the ring and all of a sudden they talk about him like he's not there. He's invisible. And he turns it back and they're like, dude, where'd you go? Oh, I had to. Gyges realizes in a moment he has the power of invisibility. And what does he do with that power the minute he gets power? Like, this is so great. I get to like go and help people and I can do it invisibly and they'll never know it was me. This is so, no. That's not what he does. What does he do? He goes into the city. He kills the king, he seduces the queen and rapes her, and he takes over the kingdom. That's what he does with the ring. And this is what Glaucon says. Here's the thing. He goes, I hate the fact that Gyges does that. But I have this nasty, sneaky feeling that inside of me, if I got a ring that gave me complete and total power of invisibility, I hate to say it, Socrates, but I kind of think I'd probably do bad stuff with that ring, just like any other person. I kind of have that feeling, because that's the world that we live in, and I think Thrasymachus may be right. Can you please give me an argument why I'm wrong? Now, for a very long time, as I lectured Republic, it was clear to me that students didn't fully appreciate the question of the myth of Gyges. So I had to find some way to help my students understand the real question that's being asked. And so I invented a new story. This is a different myth. This is the myth of Maverick. So in your notes you want to write it down as such. Maverick, a small little convenience store in our town, as you know. And it runs something like this. This is Glaucon's question now, rewritten so that it makes, I hope, some better sense to you. You are working at Maverick, please forgive. You're in the middle of the summertime, nobody else is in Maverick. It's 3 in the afternoon, you get off at 5. When into the Maverick pulls this unbelievably long white stretch limousine. Whoa, we don't see limousines in our town very often. You jump up, you're like, no way. An old lady gets out. She's covered in jewelry. She's got this purse around her arm. She talks mean to the driver, and then she starts heading your way. You put on your best, welcome to Maverick, I hope you have a nice shopping experience face. And as she walks in, you say, welcome to Maverick, I hope you have a nice shopping experience. And she gives you the most disgusting look, like, why don't you get a real job and a life on top of it? You're like, all right, whatever. She goes, she gets a few things. She comes to the counter. She's ready to pay, including the gas. And you say it'll be like $55 or whatever. And she reaches into this purse of hers, and she pulls out a huge wad of $1,000 bills. She looks back up at you again. She gives you the most disgusting look. And she takes one of these $1,000 bills and slams it down on the counter. And you go, oh, I'm really sorry, but we don't have the ability to break up denominations like that. Do you have anything less, like $100 bill maybe? She's like, oh, fine. So she reaches around, she finally finds a $100 bill, she slams it down. Again, she gives you a nasty look. I'm like, dude, lady, what's up? But you saw what she didn't see. While she was pulling out her $100 bill, floating down to the floor, 5 of those $1,000 bills. Dude, you can actually see it just on the other side of the counter. Now here's Glaucon's question. Glaucon, brave in all things. He's honest. He's a great student because he's honest. What Glaucon says to Socrates is, here's the deal. Dude, that money falls. My instincts are, yes, it was a great day to come to work today. Right? The only reason, he will say, the only reason why I can imagine why that money would ever be given back to this mean old lady is because for a split second, a thought shoots through your mind. You make the change to the lady, she leaves, she drives away, you walk around the counter, you pick, sure enough, it's legit, 5 $1,000 bills. You do a little dance. You go, you know what, I'm just going to leave this money folded up on the counter for a couple hours. If she returns, then okay, I'll give it back. If she doesn't, finders, keepers, losers, sweepers. Yes! But before you get off work, you decide, you know what, somebody could come in and like maybe lift that. So I'm going to put it in my pocket. So you do, you put it in your pocket. You're 30 minutes away from getting off work. You're cleaning that disgusting hot dog machine. You're all alone in the Maverick. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, the little bell rings. You turn around. It's the old lady. It's the old lady. Only now she doesn't have all of the jewels on. And now she's not scowling. Now she's smiling. Hi. Do you remember me? I was here before. Do you? And you're looking. You look out for the limo, right? And she goes, oh, don't worry about the limo. We parked it around the edge. Hi, I'm Miss McMillan. I own Maverick. How are you?